Okay, well, good morning from Geneva. I'm Sandy Rodger from the Toilet Board Coalition. And yesterday was World Toilet Day. And we are now in the second of 3 days of webinars, which we call our World Toilet Virtual Summit. And you can see, for those of you on screen, the programs for the 3 days. And you can see there the headings: the toilet economy, the circular sanitation economy, the smart sanitation economy. And these are the three components of our vision for sanitation, which we call the sanitation economy. And that's a transformative approach to sanitation, which turns it from being an unaffordable public cost, unaffordable in many parts of the world, from there into a business opportunity. And that's what we're going to be covering over these 3 days, with a whole range of webinars, report launches, announcements, insights, experts, lots of interesting content. And if you go to our website, www.toiletboard.org, there are the links through to the various bits of content. So I guess some of you are listening to this live, some of you will be picking it up pre-recorded, but in any case, go to the website and have a look at this fantastic content. So today we have 4 sessions, 3 of them on the circular sanitation economy, and then we'll have one at the end of the day on investment, which is a very important topic to go alongside all of that. And the circular sanitation economy is a bringing together of 2 sets of ideas. So sanitation, the sanitation economy, and there are people here dialed in from the Toilet Board Coalition's Virtual Summit whose interest is in that. But this is where we overlap with the circular economy. And we're also broadcasting this on the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Disruptive Innovation Festival site. So this is the coming together of sanitation and the circular economy. And I suppose my little provocation to start the day is that that's a bit of a blind spot. There's lots of people working on the circular economy, even on the biological and water cycles within the circular economy, who maybe aren't really thinking about what the circular economy could do. So what today is about really is trying to close that blind spot, look at the opportunity, which we believe sits in that overlapping space. So both audience, and welcome to you from Paris. Now, let's start with a word, the word resources. You can't go anywhere near Veolia's website or your offices in Paris without being struck by this message: we are resources. So Laurent, tell us about that. Why is Veolia now about resources?
Well, good morning, Sandy, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to exchange this morning. Why do we talk about being resources, and why do we talk about resources? Because we've defined our mission as resourcing the world, meaning being able to go beyond the traditional approaches of dealing with water, with what we used to call waste or energy by themselves. And because we believe that in the spirit of circular economy, we have to think of all these elements as resources, and resources that can have several lives. Thanks to the loops we can manage to create, thinking out of the traditional silos and taking a disruptive approach. And I believe this is exactly what we are trying to achieve with the Toilet Board Coalition. And when we think of sanitation and stopping thinking of what you produce in the toilet as waste, but really starting to consider it as a potential new resource to address this huge challenge of sanitation that is faced by billions of people.
Great, Laurent, thank you. So you used to call, you talked about materials that you used to call waste, and you know, we used to talk in the sanitation world about human waste, and actually we've adopted the term, like Veolia has done, toilet resources. So here's our challenge for the day's webinars. Let's see if we can go through 3 webinars mentioning toilet resources and not talking about human waste, but we'll see. These language things go quite deep, and it's hard to change these habits, but perhaps it's an important thing to do. So Laurent, tell us a bit more about why you see a circular economy story within sanitation, and how does this link up with sanitation? I mean, you saw on that first chart, toilet economy, smart sanitation economy. Tomorrow we're launching a report about sanitation within a smart city. So help us locate this. Where do these stories fit in to sanitation?
Well, when you think of the circular economy, we often mention about the fact that the linear economy is about taking resources, producing, and disposing. I think when it comes to sanitation, it's about eating, digesting, and disposing. That's the linear approach. But obviously, what we dispose of is actually, when you look into it, actually can become a resource because there's nutrient that you can find there, because there could be a source of energy, for instance. And so it's possible to consider how to give at least a second life to these components. And by doing so, move from a model that is a model based on elimination of waste to a model that is based on valorization of these resources, which can lead to bring some economical benefits and again help to address the challenge of finding a model, a business model that can develop and enable to put in place sanitation where this is not the case today.
Okay, and so where you went at the end of that answer, Laurent, you were moving from the kind of circular economy aspect to saying, you know, what is the benefit here for sanitation by having these business models? Why is this a good idea from the sanitation point of view?
Well, traditionally, again, when you think of sanitation, let's say in the Western world, the way it's financed, it's really financed through taxes, through tariffs, to get rid of the waste. But it's only lately that we look at, for instance, on wastewater treatment plants, at the production of energy and trying to have wastewater treatment plants that will be balanced when it comes to energy consumption, or even in some location, energy positive. But that's, I would say, a more recent approach. In the developing world, where this traditional waste, sanitation system and waste collection and treatment are not in place, there might be the opportunity actually to look at things from a completely different angle and from the get-go to consider whether there's economic interest that can be developed through the valorization of, again, the nutrient or the energy that can be produced out of, basically comes out of the toilets. So that's the approach that we have to take. And of course, if we manage to do that, then you completely change the game. You come to a paradigm change where you can have an economical benefit to the management of a sanitation system, and you can produce new incomes that might contribute to finance initial installation of system or balance the operation costs that are necessary to develop and make available a sanitation system. So that's very much what we are looking at, and that's why taking the perspective of a new economy in sanitation is, I believe, a game changer.
So this is genuinely a new economic model for sanitation that you're talking about. So part of that, I guess, is a story about businesses making a profit. Businesses making a profit who can then bring in investment. Hopefully, that sounds like a positive new contribution to the sanitation space. But so, from Veolia's point of view, does this actually translate into profitable business? Does this work in that way for Veolia?
So that's absolutely what's at stake, and this is definitely what is our interest. If I say from a pure business interest, beyond our mission and where we really want to make a difference, and obviously, looking around, you find that there's already a number of entrepreneurs, small businesses, that have started to put in place some of these solutions. They are more or less getting close to an economical balance, but there are some really interesting solutions here and there. And the question is, can we bring that to a more industrial level? Let's say, think of connecting the dots between a number of different solutions that have been developed, and thanks to that, develop a new field of business that will enable them to consider scaling up this solution, and again helping to address the sanitation challenge at scale.
Okay, so this is a business opportunity for a large company like yours. It's a business opportunity for smaller companies also working in the space of providing these services, providing the infrastructure. But what about other businesses? I mean, is this a conversation only for people who are operators directly in this space, or are there benefits for other businesses being involved in sanitation?
Yeah, I believe that there should be a potential for connection with other businesses, and that's absolutely one of the very interesting creative approach that the Toilet Board Coalition has been taking, connecting, as you were reminding us at the beginning, Sandy, the toilet economy to the sanitation economy and potentially the smart sanitation economy. Because all that at the end of the day is potentially connected. There's no basically toilet economy if there's no sanitation economy, for instance. So that the toilet economy can take off, we need also the sanitation economy to take off. And what is the traditional approach, a bit like the linear economy approach is that everybody works in their own silos. That's what everybody has been doing for years, trying to find a solution in their own silos, without looking around and without trying to connect different activities to bridge between them, and by doing so, coming with new type of solutions that can enable actually two different activities to develop. So that's one of the things we are exploring. People who are in the toilet economy might benefit from what will come from the sanitation economy, or might actually contribute, for instance, to initial investment to help and put on track the sanitation economy. And so that's really something really exciting. And again, that is facilitated and created by the Toilet Board Coalition.
Laurent, thanks for that. And one of the words that we've started to use about ourselves as the Toilet Board Coalition is that we are a system of companies. So we have yourselves, but we also have Lixil, who manufacture toilets. We have consumer goods companies, Unilever and Kimberly-Clark. We have Tata, who have many different businesses, and Firmenich, who are in the business of odor. And working together, we're seeing incredible leverage across different areas. And for those of you listening to the broadcast, do look on our website both today and tomorrow. You'll see our two new reports emerging, one in the agriculture sector, which we're launching in a few minutes, one about working in a smart city environment in Pune in India, which we're launching tomorrow. And they come up with, how the sanitation economy can help an agricultural plantation, how the sanitation economy can become a preventative health system, how the sanitation economy can be a new source of energy, which Laurent was talking about. So this is not just about business for the operators of sanitation. This is a much broader business opportunity, we believe. And Laurent, having said it's a business opportunity in the sort of financial sense, isn't there also a wider story here about environmental impacts, carbon emissions, pollution, and so on? I mean, what's the environmental aspect of this?
Yes, obviously. So again, when you think of waste, you think of the need to eliminate the negative impact of the waste. For instance, the pollution of water resources. If you manage to transform this waste into a resource that you use, then you, on the one side, treat the pollution or avoid the pollution and create a new benefit. When we think, for instance, of the valorization in terms of energy, be it through methanization with gas, or actually with new source of combustible to replace coal, for instance, then we are actually creating a renewable source of energy, a new renewable source of energy, which means and can be translated into reduced CO2 emission, for instance, And by the way, this might be one of the source of revenue, basically recognizing the positive impact on carbon emission on climate can be a source of revenue to support putting in place the sanitation economy. If basically you have this new source of revenue, of energy, for instance, you can avoid also in some countries deforestation using wood as a source of energy. And here again, a positive impact obviously on climate change, on carbon sequestration, but also on various ecosystems. So there's a number of positive implications that will derive from managing to put in place this new dynamic around the sanitation, again, for billions of people in the developing world.
Okay, so we're creating a picture here of many benefits, right? We're creating a picture here of circular sanitation coming together with a new economic model, with the potential for new investment, with environmental benefits, large and small companies and so on. So this is kind of in principle sounding like a really good idea, but let's for the remainder of the interview be practical about this. I mean, physically, what is this? Is this the same sewers that we know in cities and pits that we know in rural areas, just with a little bit of adaptation, or is it a completely different system? Or, you know, what does it look like, Laurent? Tell us a bit more about the physical system that you're talking about.
Yes, this is most likely a different system. The traditional system, as you said, I mean, it's based on pipe sewer, which is unrealistic, I would say, both in the growing new cities in the developing world or in slums, for instance. You won't have the infrastructure with all the pipes. You won't have the investment to put in place. And by the way, maybe it's not a bad thing because, again, this old model is based on collecting waste to get rid of waste. Instead, you will have toilets, dry toilets, for instance, in most cases, where you will separate the solid and the liquid from the get-go, avoiding dilution and recognizing the different benefit that you can get from both solid and liquid. And then you need to organize, obviously, a system for collection. And this could be through different means, from bags to trucks, for instance, and go towards different applications. And for instance, on the solid side, this could be transformation towards fertilizers. And there's a number of models that are being developed, for instance, in Kenya, with the use of flies, black soldier flies, that can then transform these organic matters into protein to feed crops, for instance, feed animals, for instance. Or you can turn the solid matters into a source of energy, or a transformation into gas that can itself also be a source of energy. So this is really the way to look at it in this new system. So very different from the networks for collection of wastewater, then all the system of depollution, where you grow bacteria to consume the pollution, but going directly to what can be the resource and try to produce actually these new resources, again, both as fertilizers, for instance, or as a new source of energy. Okay,
so a different system, a hybrid of different technologies, some of them new technologies. The way we've talked about this sometimes is, if you think of the traditional sewer system as the grid, and if you think of some of the inventions in recent times as being off-grid, so really isolated toilet installations, what we're talking about here, would it be fair to say, is a kind of new grid? And it's not just material flows, it's water flows, it's energy flows, maybe even it's data flows. We'll talk more in the smart sanitation part tomorrow. But this is a different physical system that we're talking about here. Now, the difference we talked about earlier, Laurent, was the economic difference, and almost the classic economic story of sanitation is that the economics has always said that it's really good for society to have sanitation. You know, people are healthier, live longer, are more productive, etc. There's always been an economic story for sanitation, but that economic benefit has been an externality. It hasn't turned into a cash flow which actually pays for a sanitation system. So, this needs to be not just a new economic model, but actually a new financial model. There needs to be real business in this. So, tell us how this is different financially. What are the kind of cash flows that will drive this?
So, the new cash flows will be coming from again the production of new products, be it on the fertilizer side, or be it as a new source of energy. So that's you know, the challenge of the coming months to enable to put together really something that will be balanced and sustainable. But there's a very encouraging first experimentation that have been there actually for several years. Again, I think later today there will be a discussion with people from Sanitation or Synergy out of Africa in Kenya. I think, for instance, they are very close to something that will be sustainable in terms of operating costs. So this is very reassuring. The question is, how can we bring that to scale? And I think this is where Veolia namely wants to help and have a contribution in terms of being able to scale up this system so that they can be deployed also obviously at scale and have the impact that we are all expecting. But we are very close to that. There are some smart solutions also that are taking place in terms of you know, what will be the contribution of people using the system, and as we see them being developed in different sectors, such as the energy sector, using the mobile solution as well. There's ways to build a new economy, a new system around sanitation, using also the digital system. And so that's all these elements of the jigsaw, once again, that we need collectively to put together with different players so that a new solution that will be economically viable can take place.
Okay, great. And Laurent, just to bring this to an end. So, I mean, we've heard about the potential here. We've heard about the new grid system. We've heard about the financial flows. But, you know, as the toilet board, we don't think of ourselves as a think tank. If there is such a thing as a do tank, that's kind of where we would position ourselves. So, Veolia, you joined us as our 6th member this year. You've had a few months now to settle in. Tell us a bit more about what you're actually going to be doing as part of this toilet board system going forward.
So I would say three main actions we are committed to. The first one is really to contribute to the open innovation tight dynamic that the Toilet Board Coalition has put in place, collaborating and supporting some of the entrepreneurs, some of the small companies that have started to develop these models. And for instance, we're committed this year to support one named ATEC that is operating in Cambodia, that has a really interesting model and promising model towards the valorization with energy and gas. So that's something we want to work on, because we believe this is one of again the pieces of the jigsaw that can help. We've been, for instance, meeting no later than last week people that I was mentioning in Kenya, Sanitation and Synergy, and we'll be exploring also ways to support their development. So that's the very first one. It's really working with entrepreneurs to help develop and support the solution that they're working on. The second one is really to work on solution for scaling up. again, how can we wrap up, how can we put together, bring together a number of these small solutions that have been developing to come with models that we could really help and deploy. So that's a commitment we have taken, and we are working hard at coming with some solution in the coming months that will give us confidence that we can move towards scaling up. The third element is really to work within the dynamic of the Toilet Board Coalition with the other players that you have mentioned, Sandy, so that jointly we find disruptive, creative, new ideas in terms of connecting the sanitation economy with the toilet economy and the smart sanitation economy, because I believe that the solution of the future will be, as I was saying earlier, to think out of our traditional silos, and that's where we will find really the positive additional elements that will really enable to develop at scale and in a sustainable way these new solutions. So three areas, again: work with entrepreneurs, work on wrapping up a scalable solution, and develop new fields of collaborations with the toilet economy and the smart sanitation economy.
Laurent, thank you very much. Thank you for those commitments and for your support for the Toilet Board, and indeed thank you very much for joining us this morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from one of the most senior people in one of the most expert companies in this space about how there really is an opportunity here. There's a business opportunity to make profit, but in the process to build a sanitation system which can be scaled up, which has environmental as well as social benefits, brings new investment into the sector. And this is only done by bringing the circular and the sanitation communities together. So getting out of those silos that perhaps we've been in recent times. So Laurent, thank you. Really great way to start our day of circular sanitation economy discussions today. So let me just remind you what happens next in the day, that we're going to have two more webinars. In the next one, we're going to talk about agriculture. So we're going into the rural environment. We're looking at the agricultural system and how a circular sanitation economy system might transform that, not only providing sanitation, but providing real benefits for the plantation operations as well. And we're going to be launching our new report in that session, which will start in about half an hour. For that and all the other content from our virtual summit, go onto the website. You can see the address toiletboard.org there, and you'll find lots of interesting stuff. And indeed, Laurent mentioned a sneaky preview of one of our new cohort of accelerator companies who Veolia are going to be mentoring. And one of the webinars tomorrow is to announce the new cohort for next year. So there's something else to look forward to. So thank you once again, Laurent, and from Geneva, goodbye, but join us again in half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.